Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over the team that I consistently use in Onslaught. I get asked this question a lot and I feel like even though I'm using about the same team as before, I have developed a couple new strategies to kind of give myself a better chance of success. And part of it is just understanding weapons and understanding the toons that the opponent oftentimes uses behind a specific leader. When you can identify what a person is going to use, or just even checking, because if someone's already attacked them, then their team isn't hidden anymore. At this time, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more content and information. So the team that I've been using consistently since the start, well, ever since I got the correct toons, I personally use a very simple Payback team. I use two 6-star blue Shivas as well as red Negan, but there are other Payback toons you can use, mainly being Wayland or more Negans, just as an example. I think one of the main adjustments that I've made in recent times is adding Priya into my team, and I'm using Priya because I want to keep my Payback toons defenses low, and I'm using Priya because of her Daze weapon. Now her Daze weapon is imperative to the success of my team a lot of the time, and that's specifically because Daze temporarily disarms active skills. And on a lot of the teams that I end up attacking, there's usually a princess on the defensive team. And princesses normalize will destroy my Payback team, basically at least. I like using princess as well because she does have a tough HP weapon, meaning every turn, for every tough toon on my team, I get a 5% bonus HP buff to 2 toons. This is especially useful in some matches where I don't have everyone on the opponent's team wiped out in a single hit from an Ara, from a princess, from a Mercer, and so on. What I really like about my team is that I'm able to apply some control to the enemy. That Daze to princess to start is very important to the success of my team. Having in a Negan helps because blue toons will target him because of a trade advantage. And if I get a toon like Mercer to end up rushing my team, you have a high chance of hitting multiple Payback toons. And that means there's a lot of reflected damage or damage that is paid back to the enemy. But sometimes the cookie doesn't crumble the right way. That last attack, I ended up failing it and I ended up fleeing because there was no way I was going to win. Sometimes you just get a little unlucky and you have to do your best from there. With a team like this on the defensive team, if I had tough HP, which is what my princess has, this team would be next to impossible to defeat because I wouldn't be able to apply enough damage without rushing to defeat it. Now, my goal is to always try to defeat the enemy without rushing, so I'm very particular in who I attack and how I attack. Right now, my princess is doing a pretty good job at controlling them. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to stop Frost from rushing, so he did bring back Rick, which isn't a big problem. See, Mercer is still alive, which is a big positive to me. You'll notice that whenever I know the opponent is going to rush, I end up defending with my Priya and Princess, and that gives them 50% more defense. I don't want to defend with my Payback toons because I want them to take as much damage as possible so that they pay back the same amount of damage but to 3 toons. So now it's just Princess and Priya against Rick, and because Rick does not have a taunt resist, my princess is just able to constantly taunt him in a loop. I can keep applying damage to Rick and he's not healing or anything. So it's just a matter of being patient and using my basic attacks to defeat him. The 35% heal reduction is what I have on Priya's weapon, and I've decided to leave it on the Daze weapon for now. It's not much, but it will help if I come across any fast healing weapons that are on defensive teams, or even bonus HP, because it cuts the amount that they can actually heal. Now you'll notice again, I not only dazed Princess, I also gave her enough AP that she could be command rushed, and she annihilated her whole team by rushing Negan because of a trade advantage. Another thing that you kind of want to do in some cases against these fast rushing teams is forcing a certain toon to rush. So you know if you attack a character, they gain AP. I attack Mercer because he gives all green and blue toons a huge bonus to AP when taking damage. My hope was to force him to rush. The more he rushes, the better, because he rushes 3 toons at once. Having 3 payback toons on defense gives me a high chance of payback being triggered each time. Mercer leads are probably the easiest ones to go up against with a payback team, because you know for sure Mercer is a toon that can deal a high amount of damage. I myself am guilty of running Mercer on my defensive team. I do run him with HP mods, but he can still hit very hard. So that's probably the downfall to my defense in Onslaught. It's just at this time I don't really have a better team. What you want to do with Onslaught for your defensive team is force the enemy to rush you. If they rush you, you are going to be limiting the amount of points that they can score off of you. A lot of people have some very tanky defensive teams where it's nearly impossible to get through them without rushing. And that's sometimes just something you have to give up. You don't always have a choice over it. It's sometimes just too difficult, and it's frustrating, but it's true. Now, this team is another example of where I just failed to meet the mark. I was very close to defeating it, but that bleed coming off of Georgia was just way too high. I was able to keep my princess up for a while, but in the end, Frost was just going to outlast me. So I didn't really have a choice there. It really is difficult with some teams when predicting what's on a defensive team. Like, this is a very tanky defensive team. The main toon that could give the opponent problems, I guess, would be Mercer. If I can get Mercer to rush, I'm in a good position. Now, I used to run Ivanova on this team so that I would have an attack up as well as focus, and the focus would be really valuable. Right now, all I can kind of do is wait and hope that Mercer is going to rush before my team basically gets wiped out from the infection. I have to hope that Mercer is hitting at a high enough percentage, and I'm intentionally attacking again with my payback toons, defending with my other toons when I can. That way those toons will stay alive. Now, there are a couple other tricks that I use when attacking some defensive teams, and I'm hoping that the next match will kind of showcase that. I'm hoping that there isn't a princess, but Arav and Mercer are 2 great toons to practice on. I charged Mercer right away, and unfortunately, I didn't get Pete or Sheila. Both of them are able to revive on their rush. Pete also gives a guardian shield. Pete heals on his active skill and recovers from maim. And then Sheila, I think it's crosshairs recovery, and I can't remember the other piece, but this type of team will actually be difficult to take down just because they're kind of tanky toons. Sheila has an absolute defense weapon, but luckily I do have Princess and her active skill, so normalize as well as taunt, specifically the taunt. The taunt is working every time because there is no taunt resist and there is no focus weapon for Pete at the moment. So this is a team that, again, you just have to be patient and you have to use manual, because I have 4 rushes right now. If I rushed any of these toons, I could be in a mess. Now, I don't think I'm going to get through this team because Sheila's weapon has a 25% chance to heal her, I think, by 50% every turn. And unfortunately, she's the only toon there, so she is healing herself at least 25% of the time. And it's just going to take too long and be too tanky to get through. So this is the type of match that you kind of just have to flee from and accept that you can't win everything. Now, if I had some bleed mods on my Shiva, I might have had a higher chance, and that's something I could adjust to in the future. And I think that's the name of a game, learning to adjust to the defensive teams. Learning how to attack specific toons to trigger them. Triggering a Rav is great. Triggering Mercer is great. Triggering some princesses is great. And specifically with Princess, and again, I'm really hoping this will be the next video or the next piece of film that comes up. Whenever there's a princess on defense, Princess's greatest strength is also her greatest weakness. What you can do with Princess is amazing. You can charge her attacking power. So if you keep attacking her, she will gain more attack because of her special weapon as well as Berserker. So in this case, you haven't seen it yet. She can't normalize because she is dazed and she was normalized anyway. But when you attack Princess, she gains attack up to a very high percentage because of how her berserker works in cumulation with her weapon. So that is one of the tricks that I employ when I end up playing, because Princess, you can get her attack up to a ridiculously high number. There are just so many ways to tweak your teams to make them more effective in different areas of battle. Like onslaught, a lot of people call it onslaught, but I think that there could be a lot of strategy involved. There was even more strategy before, when there used to be more ways to gain these extra bonus points. One of the ways was using default weapons, for example, but the main downside was that any toon that had a bound weapon, that could be their default weapon, and some of those weapons were great. Meanwhile, a lot of other toons' default weapons, I don't even know what it is, but it's just a plain weapon, it has nothing on it, and it could be very difficult to use. The biggest point value that we see right now is not rushing the enemy. Now, a lot of people use infection and heal reduction teams, which can be super effective. Some people, like I used to use a basic attack team where I used green toons with double attack weapons, and it worked really well at the time because there were lots of yellow toons on the defensive team. Now you might see rampage toons on attack. So Priya, Princess, maybe even Dylan, just applying a lot of damage with basic attacks. What I think is you need a good balance of control as well as power, and it's a very difficult line. And not everything works out the way you plan it to. Like right there, I ended up losing the match, but I go in against it a second time. I attack Princess, I charge her right away because of a Mercer lead. She rushes and she kills her whole team. It's just how things work out. It's RNG, it's random sometimes, and you don't have control over that. And I think it's important to give yourself some grace sometimes, because things don't happen the same way twice. All you can really do is go up against a team and put your best team that'll counter that specific team. So I don't have one team that works against every single type of team. You'll notice in different areas of a game, I use different types of teams. So in Onslaught, you see me use Payback time and time again, but it's always against Mercer leads first, because I can depend on Mercer to apply a high amount of damage to multiple toons. In something like War or Raids, you'll see me use a different team based on the leader that I see. See, all my teams are specifically constructed to take down other very specific teams, or what I anticipate the defense to have. There's a lot that can be learned just by looking at the defensive leader, and even looking at the faction support toon that the player uses. In some cases, if it's someone in the region, you can take a look at territories and see what they've used to attack with. There are so many ways to gain information about a player, including their avatar picture. If someone pulls a new S-Class toon, or even the 6-star, a lot of the time they'll end up putting it up as their avatar. So that gives you more information. Is this a defensive toon? Is it an offensive toon? How would they use it? What can I do to counter that? This is the way that I kind of think. I think about what people have been pulling for, what type of synergetic team they could be making, and what the weaknesses are. Some toons' weaknesses are also their strengths, and it's all about learning how to manipulate that. That's what I did with Princess, for example, on a defensive team. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys have been using for Onslaught, and if you guys have actually enjoyed the event or not. I know that I like the rewards based on the amount of effort personally.